if you might write your names in the Zoom panel, that would really help us a lot during breakout rooms. And we do have some time set aside for questions and plenty of discussions. But if you have any thought or questions that you would like to share along the way, please feel free to share in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that and addressing as and when we can throughout the presentation. Sounds good? So with that, let's get started. So to kick things off, we wanted to introduce the four of us who will be leading the workshop today. Would like to start with Joy. Joy, would you mind introducing yourself?
Not at all. Good morning, everybody. Nice to see all of your faces, and I'm happy to have you join us. My name is Joy Altman. I'm the Managing Director here at Hands-On Twin Cities of our Pro Bono Advisory Program. I work with the other people that you'll meet today on this team and bring opportunities like these and other pro bono engagements to nonprofits and BIPOC-owned small businesses. Been with Hands-On for about 1.5 years. And I continue to learn a lot. This scoping workshop today, I'm actually going to be learning alongside all of you. So excited to get this off, and cheers to the team for having this available. Really excited to learn more about scoping.
Thanks, Joy. Blair, would you like to go next?
Oh, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Blair. I'm the Senior Relationship Manager on the Pro Bono Advisory team at Hands-On Twin Cities. And I am such a geek over this work. It's so fun to do this alongside everyone here. I've worked in the nonprofit sector for my whole career thus far, and to be able to kind of think alongside you as you see kind of what capacity resources you need or what challenges you may be experiencing is always a joy for me to really geek out and work alongside you. So excited to be here, and thanks so much, Akshaya, for putting this on.
Thank you so much, Blair. And as you all know, my name is Akshaya Patrachari, and I work alongside Blair and Joy in the Pro Bono Advisory Program as an associate consultant. And as Blair and Joy mentioned, the scoping workshop is something that we have been thinking through a lot, because we do conduct scoping calls with so many different nonprofits and small businesses that we work with. So the scoping workshop is really the lessons that we have learned over time and things that have worked for us and best practices that we have found that has worked for us. So we hope that you find value in this as well. And if there are other practices that you have seen that have helped you, we would love to hear that as well and learn from you as well. So, and then we also have Katie Walsh here today. She'll be joining us as we kick off the workshop. She's not here at the moment currently. And she is our program director here at Hands-On. So Katie looks after all the memberships with our nonprofit clients, as well as provides consulting and several engagement programs with the nonprofit. So she'll be joining us as we get started with the presentation. So you will hear from her as well. So here's a quick look at our agenda. We will give you an overview of who we are as Hands-On Twin Cities. Some of you are our members and know us very well, while some of the nonprofits here are new. So you'll get to hear a little bit about who we are and what we do. Then we will be sharing the scoping framework and some examples to go along with it. Then we will have a breakout room discussion so that you can meet other nonprofits as well and hear from them in those small group discussions. We'll be wrapping up with sharing the next steps with scoping and how you kind of hone in on a scope of work. And then what do you do with that scope of work? Where do you take that? So what are the next steps from here? So we'll be sharing a bit about that as well. So before we get into the nuts and bolts of scoping, just wanted to share the purpose of scoping. we all know that we live in a resource-constrained world, and to get sometimes we need to prioritize most of the times what is important for us to get done, to ensure we are making progress and have tangible outcomes. But this is very true for us nonprofit organizations, right? Because we have small and lean teams, and are wearing several different hats and plugging holes wherever we can. So scoping becomes even more crucial for nonprofit organizations like us, who wants to ensure that we are building our capacity and infrastructure creatively with the limited resources that we have. Secondly, scoping gets to having clear project objectives and setting expectations. And that is helpful for when you're working with a team, or if you're engaging an external volunteer to help you out with the project. So that's kind of why we are offering this workshop, because we feel that scoping goes a long way in ensuring we can prioritize what is important for us, and set the right level of expectation with the limited resources we have. So with that, the goals for today, our goals for today are to leave you with a practical framework that you can use to scope projects. We hope that you leave or have at least started working on a challenge statement during the workshop itself to help recruit skilled volunteers. And then finally, we want to share resources that are available for you here at Hands-On to engage skilled volunteers. So before we get to the heart of scoping, I will pass it on to Joy to share a little bit about who we are.
Thanks, Akshaya. Next slide. So Hands-On Twin Cities, just a quick minute to describe and share about our organization as a nonprofit. Hands-On Twin Cities has looked different throughout the years. We've been around for 100 years around volunteerism. So we were the first volunteer center. We've been able to partner with so many nonprofits such as yourselves and many more across now the country with COVID. But the purpose really was to look at communities and how we can use volunteerism to be the change. That's something that you'll see on some of our collateral of Be the Change as a volunteer organization. We've really looked at ourselves internally in the last couple of years, and like many are looking at the state of volunteerism and how we can make it more inclusive, really look at that anti-racist lens, and understand power and privilege in communities that all of us serve. And so our work recently with the Woke Coach, and as we continue work with them, has helped us kind of relook and reimagine what volunteerism is. And then the piece of what we actually do. So many people know us as a connector. We, look at ourselves as being partners to nonprofits just like yours. And we also engage our corporate partners who are, looking for goals for their volunteers in their organizations. So this visual is kind of like all of these are linked in some way or another. The linear fashion of this visual doesn't always play out, but for us, these are our key players and stakeholders: nonprofits, volunteers, companies. We are the connector, and to create that thought leadership. So bringing in all of those interested parties who really want to impact community, that's where kind of our quote unquote bread and butter is, and where we spend our time. And then, especially around our program, Hands-On Twin Cities, we look like kind of two pillars. We have our corporate projects team who engage in the real literal volunteer opportunities. really gathering resources, spending time in work alongside of nonprofits. For us at the Pro Bono Advisory Program, we really look at working in skills-based volunteerism. All volunteerism needs skills, but we look at the expertise of corporate volunteers and how they can be matched with nonprofits and where we can find benefit to really address those capacity needs that live within nonprofits. A little, history of our program. We've been doing it for 11 years, but in July of 2020, lots of interest came around pro bono. We were in a pandemic, so pro bono really scratches that virtual itch of people being able to gather all across the country in remote areas. And so that was one piece that we really looked at. And then of course the social uprising, the murder of George Floyd here in the Twin Cities made everyone kind of look at things a little bit differently. And so we were able to then forge on a path with one of our corporate partners in serving BIPOC-led small businesses. We continue to work with nonprofits as well, but some of the numbers from 2017, as you can see, 270 clients, as we call them, 1,600 volunteers, over 30,000 hours, valuing over $6 million of actual pro bono support. And then where we're at, we've been able to expand beyond the Twin Cities. We're in Atlanta, Chicago, the Bay Area, and Wisconsin, Fox Cities area being one of those places. So really proud to see kind of like the growth and being able to offer things like this today to facilitate that growth as well. And then finally, the way that we look at pro bono is we really want to look at those, as it says, beneficial outcomes for all participating. We understand that nonprofits, they offer so much for their industry. They're experts, they know what's happening, they understand what being in service looks like. And then when we join them with a group of volunteers, what they offer, their specific skill sets in the industry that they have chosen to work in, we look at that kind of sweet spot in the middle for community, using their skills. And so that's where that middle kind of visual lies, is when the two can join together. We understand that there can be real significant impact in community. Leading into that, this last bullet point just talks about strong scoping skills. We understand, as we've watched projects across the last year and a half, that scoping is the first time that those two teams get to meet. And when there is strong scoping skills and strong communication skills around that, we know that projects have such a higher level of success when alignment is decided early and everyone is on the same page, which it sounds like a no-brainer. And on paper, that is the ideal, but to get there, there are a lot of skills involved in that, because scoping can be complex. So we're going to roll into the nuts and bolts of that, as Akshaya said, and how to really get there with the team, internally and externally. So on to scoping. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joy. Really appreciate that context on why the scoping also becomes extra important when two different teams come together, which is the nonprofit and the consultants who are supporting. So as Joy said, with that context, we will be now moving on to the scoping framework and sharing some examples on what happens in each of the steps in the framework. I do want to mention again that there's no one way to do scoping. This is something that we have learned by conducting 200+ scoping calls and by learning the best practices in the industry. But if you know of something that has worked for you, feel free to share that. Would love to hear from that as well. So with that, I will pass it on to Blair to share the scoping framework.
Thanks, Akshaya. And before we get to the scoping framework, I want to start with just a definition, ground us all in that common definition. And when we talk about scoping, what we're really talking about is a conversation. It's the practice of asking questions and answering questions. And it's a really important and helpful exercise because it's about digging deep into that potential challenge that you need support on, the potential project you're looking to take on. And it's about really thinking high level, what is this challenge and how might we approach it? It helps you to take that challenge and turn it into bite-sized achievable steps. And it also really helps to really take a step back and look at the problem from a wide angle so that you can really see potential best fit solutions. Now, when we do a scoping within our pro bono projects, as been mentioned, we do bring in external volunteers to support, and they are the ones who they support the entire project as consultants, and they're there alongside during the scoping. And so they do genuinely bring that external mindset where they don't know your challenge, they don't know your nonprofit context, so they help and ask these questions. But even if you're doing this work internally, you're working with yourself, you're working with another team member who knows the challenge well, we still recommend you do scoping and you really bring that kind of inquiry mindset as if you weren't in this day in and day out and really look at that challenge with fresh eyes. And as we've been mentioning, some of the benefits of scoping is after having scoped, it really does help to make sure and increase the likelihood that whatever project you're working towards, whatever goals or deliverables you're working towards is something that you're more likely going to use and more likely going to have a great impact on your organization. It also helps to really focus everyone through the project work. It's kind of like your mission statement of the project work, that you're focusing on a certain outcome that you know is going to be impactful to your organization. So with that definition, I want to go through our scoping framework, and our scoping framework is 3 steps. The first part is understanding the need, and that's really that scope piece that we just talked about. This is having that conversation, drilling down to the challenge to get to the heart of it so you can really identify some best fit solutions. Once you've done that, you move on to step 2, where you're finally considering your options, looking at all those potential solutions and prioritizing which ones are going to be best for your organization. And then finally, you move into confirming the scope, which includes defining what's in scope and, just as important, what is out of scope, as well as identifying any needed skill sets or resources to work towards these project goals. So with that, we're going to go through step 1 really in depth, understanding the need. This is really the meat, the bulk of our scoping framework. So we're going to take some time at this stage here. We do recommend that as you're doing this, again, whether you're doing it internally or bringing in external people to support you on this, that you make sure whoever is affected by the challenge, whoever knows the challenge well, is at the table for you for these conversations. So with that, when you're working to understand the need, we really recommend you go through these 5 questions, these kind of 5 categories as you're thinking about your challenge. And again, really important to bring that external mindset, even if you're doing this as an internal team, really take a step back and look at the challenge with fresh eyes. So you're going to start really broad. What is the challenge? And think that through, really list that out. I like to just bullet points, brain dump, whatever works best for you, but really think it out and list it all out. You're then going to start moving into further defining the challenge. For whom is it a challenge? Who are the stakeholders? Who's affected? Who's impacted? Who are you working with to develop a solution? You're then going to move into thinking through current state, why this is important to the organization, what you've tried, what hasn't worked so well. You also want to think about current state in terms of the community around you, industry trends, what's going on in the world that's important. Desired state, what do you hope everything to look like? And then finally, the gap. What do you need to get from current state to desired state? So my colleague Akshaya is going to take us through each one of these questions more in depth and help you think about how to answer them, how to keep that really broad inquiry-based mindset going. And what's really neat about these questions in this framework is that as you go through all of them, just do your brain dump, think it all through. But then at the end, what you can do is you can actually look back at all the things you've thought about with the challenge and really pull out and extrapolate some key ideas that will amount to essentially a challenge statement. And that challenge statement, as we've been talking about, that can help be either kind of the guiding light of an internal project team working towards this, or it can be used to talk about this externally with external consultants to help recruit volunteers to support you on this project. So it's really cool to go through this to really understand the challenge, as well as to get to a point where you have that challenge statement to either guide the work or bring in external volunteers. So with that, Akshaya, take us through the what.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Blair. Really appreciate you walking us through the framework and the nuts and bolts of different questions in the framework that we ought to ask to approach from that unbiased external perspective or beginner's mindset, right? On our own challenge in the organization. So in the next few slides, we will be walking you through examples on each of these steps so you get more clarity on what we are talking about and how those questions could look like. We recommend that you follow through the workbook that we shared with you. If you haven't received that or not seen it, Blair will be putting it in the chat shortly. We recommend you refer to that page number 3 in the workbook. And if you thought through a challenge beforehand about your organization that you would like to work on, start writing down as you're listening through these slides, right? Start writing down your own challenge in that format to follow along the presentation. So with that, I'll be starting with the what. So what is the challenge? So you are sitting down with your team or the volunteer consultant that's working with you to kind of frame this challenge. So how would you describe that? In this case, we are sharing an example of an organization who is looking to expand their corporate partnerships. So that's kind of the challenge, really, to expand the corporate partnership. And one way to frame that is creating better ways to engage corporate partners. So as you notice this what, you will notice that we have kept that solution space really broad. And that's one of the best practice that we want to share here is keeping that solution space broad and not really saying that we want to develop a social media plan to engage corporate partners, or we want to develop a website or do a website audit. So that becomes very specific and kind of limits the solutions or creative solutions that are possible to address the challenge. So we recommend keeping this solution space broad when you frame what of the challenge. Also, other tip is to consider framing the challenge in a human tone where we are not using any specific technical terms. So that helps put everybody in the team in a discovery mindset as you're brainstorming on solutions for this challenge. So remember, at this stage, you're just thinking about the challenge, you're not thinking about the solution. So once we get through the what, so in the workbook page 3, you are seeing that there's a place where you can write down your challenge, the what. Feel free to write that down as I'm walking you through this. And then once we talk through the what, the next is for whom. So in this stage, you are brainstorming on who are the people that are impacted by this challenge and for whom you're creating this particular solution. In this case, this organization, the people that are impacted by expanding corporate partnership could be beneficiaries of this organization. It could be corporate volunteers. Of course, the organization's internal capacity is impacted because they have to allocate capacity to make these corporate relationships. So as you think through that, once you start framing the for whom, constrain the stakeholders who will be most impacted. So consider first starting with the primary stakeholders. So in this case, the primary stakeholder is the corporate partner with whom this organization is trying to expand their relationship. The secondary stakeholders are the internal team within this organization whose capacity might be impacted. So in this particular stage, we recommend you to first include the primary stakeholder, which is for the corporations who are looking to partner with nonprofits focused on youth. These are the primary stakeholder. And then the secondary stakeholders, still mentioning that for more context, which is while considering the internal team's capacity to focus on building corporate relationship. So once you have talked through the challenge, who you're trying to address that for, the next step is the current state. Some questions to consider here to think through the current state is, why is this challenge important to the organization? What has worked in terms of what has the organization tried before, what has worked, what has not worked, and what is the general industry trend around corporate relationships and corporate partnerships? What are corporations looking to do? What are the overall industry trends in this case, right? So for taking that same example around expanding corporate partnerships, this particular organization approach has been ad hoc and through their board of directors. And the reason this is important for them is to, they want to reach their funding goals and enhance brand awareness of their organization. That's why they want to expand corporate partnerships. So one way to frame the current state is using the phrase that, keeping in mind that the current approach to reach corporate partners is through ad hoc and board of directors, and then sharing that while this has worked for the organization, we still need an effective strategy to reach our funding goals. So at a high level, that's what we are sharing in current state is, why is this challenge important, and what has the organization tried, and what has worked, what has not worked. So this helps everybody in the team, whether internal or external, ground on what is the as a state as it relates to the challenge. So once you've thought through the current state, the next step is the desired state. So the value of this step is really to jot down the aspirations the team has as it relates to the challenge. Once you have found a solution for this challenge, what does the organization look and feel like? What impact does it have in this organization overall? So that's the desired state. That's what we want you to think through in this stage. And this can be even very, it can be like short-term impact that you're looking to have. For example, this can be in this case where this company is looking to expand corporate partnership. The explicit goal is they would like to reach their funding goal of X dollars annually. So that's what they are looking to do. So stating that explicitly can kind of mention, this is the current state, this is where we are, and this is where we are looking to go. And then we get to the next step, which is, how do you now get from current state to the future state or the desired state, which is by exploring the unknowns, right, in between the current and the desired state. What do you need to know to really address that gap between current and the desired state? That's what you are brainstorming at this step. And this can be any assumptions you might have about the challenge as well. So if there are assumptions, state that this is an assumption and we would like to validate that or explore that further. So taking that same example of expanding corporate partnership, in this case, this organization would really like to understand how corporate partners are making decisions on nonprofit partnerships, which corporations might be interested in partnering with them. So they want to even figure that out. They don't know this aspect. So a way of framing that is, we really need to figure out how corporate partners make decisions on nonprofit partnership and so on, right? So these are in nutshell different steps that are helpful to think through. And as Blair mentioned earlier, as you're thinking through that with your stakeholders, with your teams, just do a verbal dump of these questions somewhere. And once you have this verbal dump, you can now refer back to it and pull out the key highlights from each of these steps and put it in a form of a challenge brief that you all feel that really highlights or provides a clear understanding of the project goal, right? So one way to do that is to follow this template to easily pull the highlights from the discussions that you have had and craft that challenge brief. So this is how the template goes. Create ways to dash, which is in what is the challenge, for whom you're trying to address this challenge, keeping in mind the current state. We aim to, or our goal is to reach this desired state. To do that, we really need to figure out this. So when you bring this expanding corporate partnership example all together in terms of the phrases that I just mentioned, this is how it would look like. Create better ways to engage corporate partners for corporations who are looking to work with nonprofits that are focused on youth, while considering internal team capacity to focus on building corporate relationship, keeping in mind that our current approach has been ad hoc and through board of directors. While this has worked for us, we still need an effective strategy to reach our funding goals. Our aim is to reach the funding goal of X annually. And then to do that, we really need to figure out how corporations are making decisions on nonprofit partners, how they engage with nonprofit partners, and what program they offer for them. So that's kind of what it would look like at the end. Of course, once you do that, you need to tweak it a little bit to make sure it makes sense to read it, right? So that's kind of what it will look like. So in summary, I just wanted to share a few things to keep in mind as you're doing this exercise. Make sure the framing is not assuming a form of solution. The frame does not assume needs, and if it is assuming needs of the stakeholders in some way, make sure to state that in the gap so you can validate that. The goal of the project is clear without dictating a specific outcome. And then finally, you and your team care about this challenge, and there is a buy-in from everybody to do this challenge, and everybody is aligned on the importance of it. Otherwise, why would you work on it? So this is kind of the checklist that we wanted to share. And then we want to now open it up for any questions that you might have had so far before we break out into rooms. Any aha or questions that, or anything that stood out to you from this content so far?
I don't have any questions, but I just like the way that you guys laid it out with the, I can't remember the exact term, but like the question and then how you frame it, I think is amazing. So appreciate that. Like, that's just another way of, you know, a benefit to that. So thank you.
Thanks for sharing that, Samantha. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I agree with Samantha. I think that this, the way it's laid out, it really helps to work with other people to bring them in. You know, I took some screenshots. I hope that's okay. To help, you know, people on my team who aren't able to make it to really clarify what our challenge is, and then really have a really definitive statement, and then also how to attack it. So I think this really laid out really well also.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate it. And we'll be sharing this deck with you, so you'll have this for reference. I do want to, you know, in the interest of time, move us to the breakout room exercise. And then if you have any questions, we'll be having time at the end as well, hopefully to address that, or feel free to write me the email as I send you those follow-up items, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. So, so for breakout rooms, so once now that we have completed this step 1, we still have step 2 and step 3 of the scoping to do. In the breakout room, what we would like you to do is just kind of have a chance to meet with other nonprofit organizations who are here today. Ask any questions you might have around scoping, or if you have been, if you have participated in one of our pro bono events before, would love to, love if you could share your experiences in the breakout room so other nonprofits can hear from that as well. So really, our idea is that you take time to leverage collective wisdom of the team that's here today. So with that, I would love to open the breakout rooms, and based on the attendance, we'll be moving people around. But here, I have mentioned the rooms that you will be moving to at the bottom of this in the screen here, and then to join the breakout room, what you need to do is you need to click on the breakout room button in your Zoom, and then you will see room 1, room 2, room 3 in the breakout room. So click join to the rooms that your name is under in this particular screen. And if you're not finding that, hold on and I will help you move to the room. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you all enjoyed the short. Any aha moments or anything interesting you would like to share that came up in the breakout room?
I would just say that it's great to hear from other folks, and also I just really appreciate Joy's comments, and I have lots more questions, so I'll hold on to those for now.
We love that. Thank you for sharing, Katie. Awesome. I'll keep us moving. So as I mentioned, we have covered the first step in the scoping framework. We still have 2 more steps to share, because now you just have the challenge statement ready. You have a broad understanding or a more richer understanding of your challenge because you have gone through those set of questions. So the next step is where we will be looking at the solutioning, actually. So I will pass it on to Blair to share that.
Awesome. Thank you, Akshaya. So as Akshaya set the stage beautifully, you've come out of step 1, understanding the need, really having that challenge statement, having dug deep at the heart of the challenge. And now it's finally the time to start looking at all those potential solutions. So start by really, like I said, just get it all out there, get any and all potential solutions out there, list them everything. And then move into step 2, which is prioritizing. And you can prioritize based on whatever factors make sense to you. What we recommend is thinking about kind of that impact to effort scale, right? And thinking about what are the solutions that are maybe high impact and low effort. Those might be quick wins that you as an organization internally can take on right away. And then maybe those things that are high impact, high effort, maybe those become your major projects. Maybe that's where you're trying to invite in external consultants. And really, as you're prioritizing, it's all dependent on the bandwidth of your organization, the resources you have available to you. So those are important things to think through as you're considering your options. And then from there, you're finally going to move into confirming the scope. So I'll bring it back to Akshaya to lead us through that piece.
Thank you so much, Blair. So as Blair mentioned, once we have kind of prioritized, there are so many different ways to prioritize, but we find that prioritizing based on impact and effort can help you figure out, okay, what is that low-hanging fruit that you can tackle with the volunteer bandwidth or the team bandwidth that you have. So once you have prioritized those ideas, for example, going back to the same example of expanding corporate partnership, the top idea, if that came up, that requires less effort and has high impact, could be a social media plan. So within that idea, what are the things you feel are critical deliverables. So within a social media plan, there could be setting up accounts, getting the themes ready. That could be the must-have. Should have could be should have are deliverables that are still important, but could be a potential next step after the must-haves are completed. So this could be like having a search engine optimization in addition to the social media plan. That could be an important deliverable that you want to do next. And then nice to haves are valuable, but they probably are unnoticed by majority of the users or the stakeholders. So you may want to deprioritize that or put it in that out of scope bucket to make sure you get the more actionable insights out of that project. So, so that's the confirming the scope. You're confirming what is in scope and out of scope deliverable within that project, and then going into the skill sets needed to achieve that work. So what are the skill sets needed to achieve a social media plan, for example, is something it will be helpful to think through and document as you're going out and seeking out volunteers for that. And we just shared a resource here in this from Common Impact, who also provides a lot of pro bono opportunities. They have developed this resource called Skills by Project Type, where you can easily find the different skills, especially for complex projects like technical data analytics related. And if you want to see what type of skills you need, that particular resource can help you a lot. Other questions to consider at this stage where you're confirming the scope would be what staff resources are dedicated to the project. So even if you're engaging a volunteer to work on this project for you, it's important to think through who will be that staff point person working with this volunteer, because it does take quite a bit of time from the staff as well to guide the volunteer to that outcome, provide that necessary context to make sure the results can be used and acted upon. Other things to think about is who else should be informed about this project that's happening. Are there other volunteers in your organization or other board members that you want to inform about this particular work that's going to happen or begin? And also helpful to think through financial or other resources need to continue and maintain this work in a long term. For example, if you're pulling together a social media plan, are you doing paid advertisements, or thinking through what is the budget for social media that you have that you can resource for this project annually in the long term, so that you can implement the deliverables created in this project. So with that, we have now completed the 3 different steps within scoping, which is you have a good understanding of your challenge, you have prioritized what deliverables, what ideas or solutions would be most impactful and can be done within a set amount of time, reasonable amount of time. And you have prioritized what's in scope, what's out of scope, determined the budget, team working on this project, the skill sets working on the project. So once you have a sense of all of this, we have a template here for you to kind of just bring it all together in this format. It has the challenge statement, deliverable, how you would measure the success of this project, what are the expertise required, what's out of scope, and then what are the start date and end date. We also have a line here for logistics where you can write down how are you going to get this job done? Who is going to work on this project? Is it an internal team member? Do you plan to engage volunteers and so forth? So for that logistics piece, the next steps from here, I would like to invite Katie to share what you could do from here once you have the scope ready. Katie.
Thanks, Akshaya. Hi, everyone. Sorry for popping on a little bit late, but really great to see all of you. I'm Katie Walsh, Program Director of Hands On, and just wanted to share a couple resources with you all. So when you are ready to find those pro bono volunteers or any volunteer, make sure to utilize our volunteer opportunity database on our website. I believe most of you, if not all of you, already have an organization listing on our site, but within that platform, there is a way that you can tag any of your opportunities that are appropriate for skills-based or pro bono volunteers. So if you're looking for a specific skill set or expertise, you can tag those opportunities so that they show up under our special pro bono opportunity feature. So it's a way that it groups opportunities under an umbrella. And so we share that link with a lot of our corporate partners that we're working with. We share that in our social media and newsletters. But it's one way that we can really push out into the community some of those pro bono or specialized skilled opportunities that our nonprofit partners have. So make sure to tag some of those as appropriate. Also, please reach out to me anytime you have questions, posting opportunities in the system, you're not sure how to log in, or if you need to set up a agency account, just let me know. I can help with that. You want to advance, Akshaya, to the next? Thank you. And then I also wanted to share a little bit about our membership program. So any organization, nonprofit organization, can use our volunteer opportunity database to post opportunities, any kind of volunteer opportunity, to find people that are passionate about your work. But you can also choose to join as a nonprofit member of Hands-On Twin Cities. Again, I think some of you are already members and have been for many years, but it really gives you an opportunity to tap into other services and programs and work that we're doing. This is just a snapshot. All of this information is on our website. And again, feel free to reach out to me if you have questions about membership and how to maximize your membership. But in addition to the website and free workshops like this and participating in Connected for Change Days, we can also help push out and promote some of your opportunities to get more visibility in a variety of ways. Social media, we have special features on our website, newsletters, any events that we're doing, we're always promoting the needs of our nonprofit members. We do a lot with our corporate clients, which I'm sure the pro bono team has already talked about, but we can connect you with custom projects where we bring a group of volunteers to your site to do, it could be anything, it could be landscaping, it could be organizing a storage closet. We also do a lot of in-kind need projects where we work with groups to put together, for example, hygiene kits or snack packs. So any kind of in-kind needs, we can connect you with some of those resources. And then looking into hopefully later this year and continuing as we come out of the pandemic, reinstituting some of our in-person events, such as Find Your Cause and other community events where we can engage the community in volunteering and share information about your organization and your needs and ways people can get involved. So we're hoping, again, to do more in-person events like we used to do back a couple years ago. So again, those events are primarily for our nonprofit members. And then we also offer a variety of ways to network and gain support from peers. We have member meetup groups. I'm looking at doing a little bit more this fall. We did our open house last fall to celebrate Volunteer Program Manager Day. So in all of the work that we're doing, we're trying to focus on ways that we can connect you all and share the work that you're doing and share resources, in addition to individual support from our team. So site visits and one-on-one Zoom calls where I can sit down with you and really listen to what are your needs and where can we help connect you to some of the things that we're doing, as well as our monthly member newsletter that has all the latest and greatest for our members to get involved in. So again, all of this is on our website. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and I'll certainly reach out to you all individually as well, just to check in. So that's what I had, Akshaya.
Thanks, Katie. And we have Joy. Joy will be walking us through the Connected for Change Days.
Sure. So you've heard of us talk about this, and some of you, I think many of you might be familiar with our Connected for Change Days. They're day-long community pro bono opportunities for nonprofits to join with community volunteers, and they come from all over. They are most often linked to our corporate volunteer connections, but they really are free to anyone to sign up and join those days. And so we have 2 days coming up that we'll still be recruiting for. So a marketing day is self-explanatory, all about your marketing needs, communication. We know that that's something that nonprofits are always looking at as people that need to reach out to community to share their work and their message. And then a technology day. So that is the dates there when we're recruiting. And that can look a couple different ways. It can be literalness of your website and how that's working for you. It also can be around your CRMs. It can be around the platforms that you've chosen to use. So think of technology in kind of a broader fashion, and those are days that, like I said, we're still recruiting for. Other days that we've had in the past, so strategy. We are actually having that in July, so we're done with our recruitment phase, but that's a very multifunctional day. It can look very different from group to group. One may, be working on an HR strategy. One may be working on a financial strategy. So really varied and cross-functional that day. The 2 other days that were new this year, social justice and sustainability, those are really around the nonprofits and the work that they're doing. Challenges then could range to whatever their current need was. So we know that, all of those nonprofits have been in the spotlight very recently. We know that there's lots of interest around that. So we wanted to make sure that needs were being met for community in those 2 areas. And then lastly, HR. We all know HR needs, as everyone is looking for people and thinking about ways to retain people. That is a function that we've seen time and time again that have been valuable. So keep an eye out for those. We are continually looking at those days and how we can make sure we're offering, what community needs are and aligning that with our volunteers. The other opportunity that's not listed here that I mentioned maybe to my group is that right now we have a Securian private day. They're interested in joining nonprofits for a consulting session. We call it Lightning Skills. It's about 2.5 hours where you can actually probably use that team for a deep scope to build maybe a bigger project or create a roadmap on something that you internally want to work on. And so I'm going to load that link in the chat for the application where you can read more about what it is, when it is. It is an in-person in July, and we're looking for technology challenges. So how I kind of framed up that day that we're having later in the year for our Connected for Change days, this actually could lead to a really good scoping session and then working on that long range challenge on the day long later in the year. So take a look at that. If your team or any other nonprofit is interested in working on a technology challenge, I am currently holding assessment calls and staffing that now. So those are a couple of the opportunities we wanted to share there. And then resources. These are a couple things that we know links us to you and also deepens your knowledge and awareness on pro bono. The first one, the Readiness Roadmap by Common Impact, a great pro bono partner with lots of resources there. That really kind of steps out and looks before you get into the scoping process of your organization on, is pro bono something that our organization has capacity to take a part of and really has shared alignment. So it looks at the staff that you have. It kind of it's a quiz type resource that kind of shares how do I get to pro bono and is pro bono right for us. So wanted to share that. Potential pro bono projects. This lives on our website. All of these links here we'll get to you, but that's if you have ideas. So whether or not we have an opportunity going on, we love to hear from nonprofits to say, oh my gosh, we really need somebody to help us with the communication plan. If you have that idea, go to that that place. input that idea, and then that lives on our potential project list. So when I am or anyone from our team is recruiting for projects that we have a lot coming up, we can look at that and say, oh, we heard from, you know, FEN and they are looking for a project here. Wow, we have something, an opportunity that we can match them to. So the more that we can hear from you on the proactive side helps us in our recruitment and get those opportunities to the organizations that are in need. Katie talked about the newsletter. Make sure you're signed up to hear about these types of events, about a workshop like this. Any questions at all, you can reach me and talk to me and ask all the questions. As Blair kind of said, she likes to geek out about stuff like this. We all do. I think our team has really embraced pro bono in a way that has helped us understand needs of community, and just that match, that magical match we're all looking for is really what we're working towards. And then membership, of course. Katie has all of the membership knowledge. I learned things on this call that I should have known, and I didn't know. And so Katie has the answers. So please reach out to her for that.
Awesome. Thank you, Joy. Really helpful to hear all these different opportunities and where you can now take the challenge that you have thought through during the session today and apply to these different opportunities that are upcoming with Securian beginning. The first with the tech needs, that's the most earliest opportunity available to engage. With that, I really want to thank you all for listening and your words of encouragement along the way. This is the first time we are doing this workshop after a long time, and the first time that I am offering this myself. So really appreciated everybody's encouragement and helping us get through the content and, you know, going with the flow. So appreciate it. Any final thoughts anybody would like to share before we wrap up?
Thank you.
Thank you. And we will be sharing a post, like a survey with you of the scoping workshop. The purpose of the survey is really to get feedback on the content, but also what other resources or workshops might be helpful for you so that we can think through that for future. So if you could take time to fill that survey out, we will be putting that here in the chat. Blair already put it. Thank you. Thanks, Blair. So really appreciate that. If you could take some time to fill that out, it won't take more than 2 minutes, I promise. Thank you again, everyone. Thank you. It was so great to see you all and meet you all here today. Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.